Welcome back to the Outlaw Ranch. As you can see, we haven't gotten anything else done in the last few days. Today's my first day off, so we're going to try and get some work done. First, I wanted to thank everybody that watches. I've noticed that people kind of only watch for a few minutes, so I want to give you guys a big thank you up front. I've picked up a few new subscribers, and I'm very grateful for that, so thank you guys for that. And let's start in on the project here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to test and see how much this axle will actually droop before we make contact here between our upper link and our kicker bracing here for the subframe. We'll see how much we've got. I suspect this tube here is going to have to come out, and we're going to have to put the first dog leg right here. It's right about underneath the body mount here, and I think that's where it's going to have to go. I'm dreading removing this because, like an idiot, I started welding everything, and I feel really foolish right now, but live and learn. So let's see how far this axle will move before we get too carried away. So stand by, folks, and I'll bring you all along. All right, so the axle was 11¼ inches off the ground. That's the distance from this block here to the ground. I now have this lowered down. We have so close to making contact there. So this is reasonably about as low as it can go. And let's see how low it has gone. We needed this to be down to 3¼ inches. We're not even close. We're at about 8½. So sure enough, these tubes have to come out. Darn it. Okay, well, live and learn. We'll get that figured out. I'll see if I can't get that tube pulled out. And we'll go from there. Stand by, y'all. All right, y'all. As you can see, we got this tube here removed. It was some cutting with the cutoff wheel and grinding with the flap disc. This one we just had tacked in there, so no big deal there. But this one, I was very foolish, and I fully welded it. So now we're going to come in here with a flap disc. We're going to clean this all up. Same thing on this tube here. I did mark it, but when I marked it, what I did was I came off of this piece here on the body, on the cab mount, and I went straight down, and I used my little angle finder, and I came up with a little mark. And that mark is right there. So I'll measure back, I don't know, say 6 inches, 8 inches, something like that. And then we'll start trying to put that bend. Because if you'll notice, that mark right there is not far from that bend. So, like I said, we're gonna give it a shot. If it doesn't work, well, I'll buy some more tubing and we'll give it a try then. But for right now, we're gonna try and use what we have. So stand by, y'all. Got a little bit of cleanup to do. All right, y'all. So you can see we've got this cleaned up pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Same thing up here on the frame. Everything's done nice. And we have our tube here cleaned up. Next step, I'm gonna come back here, I don't know, let's call it like 6 or 8 inches, and we'll see if we can't figure out that bend. I'll use my handy dandy little angle finder, my digital angle finder, and see if I can't figure out the bend on this. I imagine what's gonna happen is this tube is gonna go in the bender. I'll put a mark on it here and we'll measure it, off of this end. Somewhere in here, I don't know, say a foot or so, and we'll start our bend. And we may only go like 10 degrees or something, and it's probably gonna go in and out of the bender numerous times till we get it right. We can always go more, but we can't really go less very well. So stand by. We'll get the bender out and see what we can figure out here. All right. We have our 10 degrees in here. As you can see, there's now a gap. So if we were to eyeball down this, you can see there's a 10-degree offset there. So let's get some clamps, see if we can't clamp this thing up into the frame and see if it clears. I went ahead and reinstalled that upper link just so I could check for clearances and stuff. What we're looking for is somehow to kind of mirror, you know, the clearances we have here, because that one was plenty. So stand by. We're gonna see if we can't hold this tubing up into place and see if it's gonna work. All right, y'all. Here's our tube, and it is clamped in here very loosely. You can see the fitment is still really good on this end. Here's where our mark was that fell in line right underneath the body mount. And I use this as my point so you can kind of see where it was bending was right here. So this is a 10-degree offset. I'll have to come in here and grind this tip here a little bit to get it to fit better. But this is the important part here, or one of the important parts here, is that now that lower tube, until it starts that first of two bends there, follows directly in line with the frame. And then we have the first bend to offset it, you know, towards the center of the truck. And then we have our 30-degree bend where it's bent to come into the frame here. And this, you guys will remember, I had these at 11 degrees, and it is still 11 degrees. So other than trimming this tip, I'd say I've got it. And the all-important part, this is what we were really after here, is all this clearance here. And there's a good solid 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, something like that in there. And that's the important part. So I will check, make sure the axle still drops away, just to make sure before we get too crazy and start tacking this in. But stand by, yo. We got a little bit of fitment to do, and then we can tack this in. All right, we're getting somewhere. As you can see, we got this tube tacked in. It blends in perfectly into there. And we have this fit up here much better. And we have all kinds of clearance. We got a good solid 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches in there, which matches what we have here on the rear. So well worth it. Now it's rinse and repeat. We got to cut that other tube out on the passenger side, do the exact same thing, but you know, the opposite, the mirror image, and see what we can accomplish over there. Incidentally, this angle now has changed ever so slightly. And I think it's a couple of things. I think it's because we put this dog leg in here. As soon as you put a bend, you know, that material has to go somewhere. And so it always ends up being a little bit shorter. And then when I ground this very tip off over here, it came in a little higher. So this is now 11.1 or 11.2 degrees, depends on where on the tube you put it. And the rear was 11. So we're either 0.1 or 0.2 degrees off. But well worth the effort here. We have all kinds of clearance. So let's rinse and repeat. Let's cut that other tube off the other side and see if we can duplicate it. Stand by. All right, y'all. As you can see, we can eyeball down that, and you can see the dog leg, and you can see that it's perfectly in line. We have everything tacked into place. Here and here. Let's turn this on. And what was it? Oh, there we go, 11.2. That's exactly what the other side was. So we're 0.2 degrees off from the rears. But that's gonna work. And you can see we plane in nice and perfect through there as well. And you can see I put some little reference marks here so everything's lining up nice. So this side's done. Now we just gotta put this link bar back into place, check our clearances, and we should be ready to move on. So stand by. All right, y'all. You can see I have this axle lowered down as far as it'll go. And we have tons of clearance here on these link bars. Still got 3/4 of an inch there, so everything's looking good. Next phase here is the shock tabs. Again, they've been kind of the bane of my existence here. I've got this one tacked in. This will probably move up another 1.5 inches. I tried to put it kind of centered in here just to keep everything as square as possible. So we'll have to move this up again. And right now I'm toying with the lower shock mounts. You can see if I turn this all the way, we have clearance. There's a bolt over here. I don't know what it's for. I want to say that's where the brakes were on, but I'll have to remove that bolt and see if it goes all the way through. The other shock mounts I have are right here, and they are significantly taller, about 2-ish inches. So if I just go ahead and put that on the axle there, you can see that that hole is significantly higher. And on the front, I think I'm already a little over budget for height. This is about 8 inches of shaft exposed here. So at full droop, it'd go 8 more inches, but this should be ride height. And sure seems like this axle needs to come up quite a bit to be at ride height. So I'll crunch some more numbers, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Just trying to figure this out. We're going to stop probably for the day. I know it doesn't look like we got much done, but we got the clearance and everything on the front kickers. Today is Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas, and I hope that you get to spend it with family and friends and that everybody is there happy and healthy and safe. So with that, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe. And I appreciate each and every one of you that would watch. So thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to y'all.